As we hear these gut-wrenching stories of people fleeing to the United States, a pandemic-era health policy that restricts asylum seekers from crossing the border is set to come to an end on December the 20th, taking effect on midnight on the 21st. This is 15 Republican-led states have asked a federal judge to pause the end of Title 42, arguing it would lead to an increase of people arriving to the U.S. Joining us now with more is Alan Orr, an immigration attorney and the former president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Alan, thank you for being with us this morning. These stories of people desperate to seek a new life in freedom in the United States is the result of a broken immigration system. There is no line to jump to the back of. And this is not going away at any point, Alan. It's getting more and more dangerous for people to flee. And why is it that there is no way for them to, at their home country or somewhere else, try and reach a new life?
I think there are really difficult arrangements in country that the vice president has worked on through the refugee program. And many of these countries aren't related to the UN, so that speaks a lot to the refugees. But beyond that, what we can also say is that there's an American law that allows for asylum. The use of Title 42, a 1944 law that was done around the same time we were imprisoning Japanese Americans in internment camps. It's a Stephen Miller special that is exacted to give harm and cruelty to these individuals.
So if that's the case, why is it still in use today? And what is it's almost as it's a health law, right, that is being used for immigration policy. What is the immigration policy?
So the current immigration policy is that asylum is legal. And that's the problem, that we're not following our own laws. We're saying that we can't handle the number, that we're afraid of the amount of people coming to our border, only at our southern border. We're not concerned with the other immigrants that come over and may overstay or the other immigrant exposures at the other borders. We're just concerned about the southern border. So we're not addressing immigration comprehensively. We're only saying, let's talk about the southern border. In fact, when we say, as you said earlier in this segment, that if we were to pass some type of immigration reform, we could address a lot of the pull that's pushing these immigrants to our border and give them a legal way to obtain status within this country. Many of the states that are suing the federal government to keep Title 42 in place are the highest states that use immigrant laborers through the H-2B program. So it's very inconsistent for Texas and Virginia to say, we can't take these migrants or a burden, and at the same time say to us, we need workers here to help our farmers. These are inconsistent conversations that are based on hate. And it's really just a political season kind of fairy tale. Every time something happens politically, we say, look at the southern border. When in fact, stunts and tricks at the southern border are not the result for this. Mr. McCarthy should have been in D.C. drafting legislation to address the issue.
Alan, you know, when you look at the world around us, Haiti is devolving into a lawless state, essentially, and people are just being very difficult to survive in Haiti on a daily basis. You have Cuba with a 62-year-plus dictatorship, Venezuela, you have Nicaragua. You have countries where people really feel that that their only solution is to leave. So how do we as a country deal with that reality?
I think the first thing is, as we celebrate Native American History Day, that we're not afraid that people want to come and be a part of our country. That's our concern, is basically being the best country and following our laws. With regards to the great migration problem around the world, that's something that requires work by the UN. I don't think treating humans not as problems, but as people, and addressing our immigration code to reform it to meet the need, and also to follow our own asylum laws as they currently are printed. If Congress wants to change them, they can. And accepting people is not a problem. I find it very alarming to me that when people come 1,000 miles, 30 people get in a boat, they risk their lives to come to this country to just be a part of the greatness that we have, that we say to them, no, you're a problem. When in fact, we have over 10 million jobs that are unfilled right now, and they're trying to meet part of the need that we have overall with population decline.
And every single day, as you and I speak, and you know this better than anybody else, there are people that are going through the most difficult, horrific conditions through the Darien jungle, going through Mexico, getting on a raft or a boat, leaving Cuba or Haiti, trying to get out of Venezuela. That's happening right now as we speak. And it's a continuing crisis. And Eleanor, I thank you so much for shining a light on it and for doing the work that you do. I really appreciate it.